This is a presentation on preparing the title and abstract for an evaluative research study, particularly in the human services. That's me, Reggie York. At the completion of this presentation, you will be able to, first of all, write the title of an evaluative research report that contains only the necessary information. It should contain the essential information and only the essential information. That's the idea of this presentation. It should write the abstract. You should be able to write the abstract for an evaluation report that contains only the necessary information. It contains the necessary information, but only that. We're talking here about an evaluative study, a study that evaluates services in the human services. Let's talk about the purpose of the title, first of all. Is any one or ones of these a good statement of the purpose of the title? About to impress the reader on the excellence of the prose the writer is capable of portraying. Is this the purpose of the title? I would say no. How about to write a statement that gets the reader's attention, such as school social work? Are we there yet? That's kind of catchy, isn't it? Well, I'd say that doesn't belong there either as a purpose. That's not what you should be doing. You should be conveying critical information with the title of your paper, not trying to be fancy. Should any of these be included in the title? First of all, information that reveals this is a report of an evaluative study in the human services. Should that be revealed by the title? I would say yes. How about the target population that's being served? I would say yes. How about a clever phrase that captures the imagination of the reader? I would say no. That's like the thing we just said, school social work, are we there yet? That title didn't tell you much of anything except it's about school social work. That's all it seemed to reveal. How about the fourth one here, the target behavior that was treated? Should that be revealed in the title? I would say yes. How about the intervention being evaluated? I would say yes. So those are some of the things that ought to be included, information that ought to be included in the title. Is this complete as the title? An examination of the effectiveness of strengths-based services. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this complete? I would say no, it doesn't have enough. How about an examination of the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy in the treatment of depression? Is this sufficient? Well, it's better than the first one, but I'd say it's not quite there yet. How about this one? An examination of the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy in the treatment of depression for single mothers in poverty. What do you think? Okay, I would say that's pretty good. It covers what you need to include. Let's go to reviewing the nature of the abstract for an evaluation study. The purpose of the abstract is to provide a concise statement about the nature of the evaluation study being reported, sufficient to provide the reader with a basic understanding of the purpose, methods, and results of the study. So keep in mind those three things: purpose, methods, and results. Keep in mind also the word concise. It is a concise statement, which we're going to talk about now. 250 words or less is generally the suggested guideline. This is not carved in stone, but it gives you an idea of the size an abstract typically should be. And of course, it should just have the basics. So let's talk a little bit about what should be included. How about the purpose of the study being reported and the research question pursued? Should this be included in the abstract? What is your purpose and research question? I would say yes. How about the research methods employed? Well, I would say yes, but only briefly and in a general way, not a lot of specifics. How about the basic results? I would say yes, but again, basic, not the details. How about the study conclusions? Should that be a part of the abstract? I would say yes. going back to what should be included, I want to say something before I get further around, that the title, not the abstract, the title should not convey the results of the study. The abstract should, the title should not. How about the purpose statement for the abstract? Here are examples. To assess the effectiveness of the parent support program and the enhancement of knowledge about good parenting practices for parents of at-risk youth. Do you think that's a good statement of purpose? I would say generally it is. You could, of course, make it a little bit better in various ways. You might say something about at-risk youth, at risk for delinquency or something of that nature. There's some things you could do there that make it a little bit better, but generally speaking, I think that works. How about the second one, to evaluate the effectiveness of cognitive behavioral therapy in the reduction of depression for victims of family violence as a purpose of the study? Would you say that works? I would say yes, that seems to be reasonably good. The research question is very much like the purpose. It's just worded a little bit differently usually. Here's an example of a research question. Is strengths-based tutoring offered in group settings effective in the improvement of school grades for middle school youth identified as being at risk for dropping out of school? I'm sorry, it shouldn't say dropping out, it should be dropping out, excuse me. Okay, I say that does a pretty good job of portraying a research question. How about this one? Is cognitive behavioral therapy effective in the reduction of depression for adults in assisted living arrangements? I think that also does a reasonably good job of giving the information that is needed. How about what should you say in regard to the research methods used when you're writing your abstract? The abstracts identify what was measured and how. Here's an example. Knowledge of good parenting practices was measured by the Adult Adolescent Parenting Inventory, a tool designed to assess the knowledge and child-rearing attitudes for adolescents and adults. This scale was administered both before service and at the end of service, and gain was computed. This sort of portrays what was measured and how, and it does it in a concise way. You notice there's not a lot of details there. We didn't talk about to what extent was the Adult Adolescent Parenting Inventory supported by evidence of its reliability and validity, what are its norms, or anything of that nature. We're talking now about the abstract, so we're being concise. How about the results? Well, what was the hypothesis and what were the results? These are pieces of information that should be in the abstract for an evaluation study. Here's an example. The hypothesis was as follows. Post-test scores for parenting skill will be higher than pre-test scores. For this study, the mean post-test score was higher than the mean pre-test score, and this difference was found to be statistically significant. Thus, the hypothesis was supported. You will notice, if you understand, of course, about evaluation research, that when you support the hypothesis, you have to have two kinds of data. One that shows the data went in the hypothesized direction, and one that shows the hypothesis was supported. You notice here we're talking about a concise statement in the abstract. So you don't have a p less than 0.05, you don't have mean pre-test score, mean post-test score, and so forth. That wouldn't be a terrible thing to include, but it gets in the way of conciseness, so it's really not necessary. How about conclusions? Which of these conclusions are appropriate given the spirit of scientific inquiry? Keep in mind the spirit of scientific inquiry as you think about this. Number one, the results of this study support the conclusion that cognitive behavioral therapy is effective in the treatment of depression for adults in assisted living arrangements. Look at that one. Does it seem to be reasonably good in regard to the spirit of scientific inquiry? And do you think it should be an appropriate statement for the abstract? I would say yes. How about the second one? The results of this study proved that cognitive behavioral therapy is effective in the treatment of depression for adults in assisted living arrangements. If you pause and look at those two, you'll notice the critical difference is the second one says proved, and the first one says the study supports the conclusion. I would say the first one is more appropriate given the spirit of scientific inquiry, because when we conduct one study, I don't like to think that we actually proved a point. I think we provided evidence in support of a certain conclusion. But to say you proved it sort of suggests you found the final answer to the question, is cognitive behavioral therapy effective? And that's probably going beyond what is reasonable for you to conclude from a single evaluation research study. So what are some things not to put in the abstract? Okay, details about the nature of the target behavior, its causes and consequences. That goes in your paper under the analysis of the target behavior. You talk about this there, but not in the abstract. That doesn't need to be there. Details about the measurement tool and its reliability and validity. I've already mentioned that. Details about that does not fit in the abstract. How about details about the intervention? You should describe the intervention and provide some kind of idea of the nature of it, but you don't need to talk about the goals and objectives and structure and model and personnel, etc. That goes in the body of the report under the description of the intervention, but it does not belong, details about it does not belong in the abstract. You do need to portray what it is in the abstract, but not a lot of details. Also, you don't need references to the literature. If you make a statement of fact in the abstract, it should be supported by a statement in the literature review that you do, where you will have references, but they don't belong really in the abstract. Also, what not to put there, too many words. Again, it is a concise statement. Does this belong in this abstract? The purpose of this study is to examine whether a particular form of abortion counseling will reduce the anxiety levels of clients seeking to terminate an unintended pregnancy. Does this seem to be appropriate? I would say yes. How about this? Does this belong in the abstract? Hit the pause button, read this, and then come back to me. Okay, I would say this is too much detail. This does not belong in the abstract. It belongs in the body of the report, but not in the abstract. Too much stuff, too many details. They're just not needed. Well, here's a summary of what we've gone over. The title for an evaluation report identifies the target behavior, the target population, the intervention, and conveys the message that this is a report of an evaluation study. By the way, you certainly don't want to have your title as research paper. That wouldn't do. The title does not reveal the results of the study. The abstract is a concise statement of the purpose, methods, results, and conclusions of the study that was conducted. That's fundamentally what an abstract does. So when you finish your abstract, you need to look back over this list and make sure you have covered all those appropriately. The abstract does not contain details, such as, for example, information about the validity of the measurement tools employed or theories about the target behavior. Those things do not belong in an abstract. This is the end of the presentation. I hope this is helpful to you.